Hello, my name is Marissa and welcome to elementarySchoolCounseling.org's video podcast. This is our 6th video podcast called Document, Document, Document. Before I get started, I wanted to wish everyone a happy summer. I know most of you are on summer break by now, and in honor of my summer vacation, I am wearing a Detroit Tigers t-shirt, my favorite baseball team, and already I feel so relaxed and refreshed and definitely energized to start this next year. Especially since I have been going online a little too much and looking at a lot of really great counseling ideas, so I'll have a lot of things I want to start for next year. So I'm not sure if that's a really good thing or a bad thing. I don't know. I'm going to say it's a good thing to validate my behavior. Anyway, so the topic of this podcast is about documentation. I get a lot of questions from my viewers on what I use and how I use it. I think documentation in school counseling is not as regulated as maybe other counseling fields. I think you're given a little bit more leeway in how you want to document. And I know some people who don't document at all, some people who just have a little tally sheet to say how many students they've seen and how many parents they've talked to, and other people write really, really detailed notes. And so there's a range of styles of documentation. And so I don't think there is necessarily one right way to do it, but I have what's right for me, and so that's what I'll be sharing with you.
Gray on black and white.
The first part of my documentation system involves a planning sheet. This is like my agenda book for individual counseling. I have a separate planner that I use for my meetings, classroom lessons, small groups, any other scheduled events that I have. Because most planners do not have a lot of room where you can write individual students that you've seen that day. And so this is just what works for me. And so in that main planner, I have a way to clearly document how many meetings I've attended, how many classroom lessons I've had. And that's basically by color coding my planner. So all of my meetings, for example, are highlighted in pink. All of my grade level team meetings where we're talking about either behavior or we're talking about data that we have on that specific grade level, that is highlighted in purple. My classroom lessons are highlighted in orange, and my small groups are highlighted in green. And any student meeting that I have with a parent and where we're working as a team, those are in blue. And so that way, if someone needs to know how many student meetings I attended in the month of March, I can quickly count the number of blue highlighted names that I have in my book. This works for me. I'm a very color-coded person. Actually, everybody at work makes fun of me for that. I'm the type of person that has a color-coordinated closet, and within each color I do it by length of sleeve. And so for me, that's what makes sense. So that might not work for you, but this is what works for me. But individual counseling is a little bit different. And my planning sheet that I have with that is basically I print off a bunch of the sheets and bind them in a book. And so this is what I use for the entire school year. And it basically just says Monday, and I have a bunch of lines underneath, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, and then I also have a section that says next week so that I can plan on who do I need to schedule for the following week. That way I don't miss anybody. And so I make my schedule out, so I write the names of the students that I have scheduled, that I've confirmed with the teacher that I can meet with that student at that particular time. And then what I do is whenever I'm done meeting with that student and I've filled out their documentation sheet of basically what the session was about, then I highlight that student's name in yellow because that was a planned meeting. I have their documentation done, I've entered it in my computer, which I'll talk about that in a second, and I've put it in their file. It's taken care of, so I can quickly see what I've done and what I still have to do. Now, there are, of course, times when you have a student in the middle of the day who's having a really difficult time or something comes up and you need to meet with them and you hadn't planned on it. So what I do is I write their name in later that day and highlight their name in blue when I'm done with their paperwork. And that way I can check quickly how many times have I seen that student when it wasn't planned. Does that show me that maybe they have some behavior issue that we need to really work on because I'm being called in for emergencies rather than being more proactive? Or perhaps, other issues are present that I really need to look into. It's really helpful for me to be able to see those patterns very clearly in color. And when I meet with a student and I fill out their paperwork of what the session was about, it's a session summary form, at the bottom I usually write when I plan on seeing them next. And I let the students know this as well because I think it's important to keep them informed. So if I plan on seeing them next week, I'll write check-in next week. And then when I go back to my agenda, in that next week section, I will write that student's name so that I remember I need to schedule them for next week. Most of my scheduling takes place on Monday. I don't know if it's the best way to do it. It's something I really want to improve upon because sometimes I feel like I'm working day to day because you get so overwhelmed with other students or issues that come up, and I really would like, if possible, to do it on Friday afternoons and get those messages out to the teachers. But typically Friday or Monday is when I am scheduling a lot of these and get them ready for the week. And maybe that works for me because most of my Mondays are groups that are already, standing appointments or classroom lessons. And so my individual counseling schedule is a lot heavier Tuesday through Friday. And so Monday I have a little bit of time and I can give teachers notice. And most of the time I have some teachers who say, oh, just take them whenever, and other teachers who just need a little bit of a heads up. But at the beginning of the year I ask them, what would be the best times for me to take your students and the least disruptive times? And so they give that to me ahead of time. So I'm basically just letting them know that this is a time I would like, and unless there's some strange circumstance, it's usually going to work because they told me that that's what's a good time for them. So now I'm sure you're wondering, what does this session summary form look like? And so it's basically a form, and I'll show you on the screen, that I record some basic data on. So I have their name, I have their grade level, their teacher, the amount of time we spent in this session, the date, of course, and then also at the bottom I have the session number. So this might be the third session that we've had together this year. It might be the first, it might be the seventh. Now this middle section, that is where I write my notes. And typically I don't write super detailed notes because the purpose of these, it's supposed to be a personal memory aid. So this is for me to look at, to jog my memory of what we talked about. I don't need to write unnecessary details in there. As long as I understand what it is, then that's good enough for me. A lot of times I use symbols so that if somebody happened to get into my notes somehow, they're locked up, but say they did, it wouldn't be as clear to them what I talked about with this student. It would be something that I would understand in my own little code that I have. But it's not too complicated. But the first time I meet with a student, even if I've met with them every year since I've been there, if it's a new year, first session of the year, I start with these same questions because I feel like they give me a lot of information. So I start with, who do you live with? And I draw a little house, and that's my symbol. And I write the people who they live with in the order in which the student told me. So if they said their sister first, I'm going to write their sister's name first, and then in the order after that. And I find this very helpful because it's very interesting what they say, and I've even had a student tell me their pet's name first, which says a lot about how their family dynamics are, or kind of how they, what are the first names that pop into their head when they think of who do I live with. It might, I can't put everything into that or, read too much into it, but it's still a helpful bit of information. Then next I ask them who their friends are, and I put a star. A star for me always means that they're a friend. And so I put, again, those in the order in which they tell me. It's interesting to see over the years how friends change and who they list first versus second or third. It helps me to know the dynamics of my building. And also, if one student said, this is my best friend, and I talk with that student sometime later and they don't agree, that tells me a lot. Then what I do is I draw a smiley face and I ask them, what are your favorite things about school? Your favorite subjects, favorite activities? And they let me know. Then I draw a sad face underneath and I say, what are your least favorite things? I don't ask if they have any. I want to know what it is, because if I ask, oh, is there anything you don't like about school? Some of my people pleasers might say, oh no, I love school, or everything's great at school. This forces them to give me some type of answer. And if they still say, no, I love everything about school, okay, that's fine. But most of the time, they'll tell me a subject that they're not feeling as comfortable with or they don't feel as talented in. And so that gives me some good information too for the future, especially if there are behavior issues. And finally, I put a star with a circle around it underneath the happy face, and I ask them what do they like to do for fun when they're at home. And so this gives me some of their additional interests and likes that maybe don't have anything to do with their typical day-to-day school life. This can give me a lot of information about what kinds of activities I would do with them one-on-one in a counseling setting, especially if I would see this student a little bit more regularly than just some basic check-ins here and there or on an as-needed basis.
What I feel, I can't do.
So, once I'm done with this form, what I do is I log that information into an Excel spreadsheet, and this helps me add up the number of students I've seen, the number of sessions I've had, and the amount of time I've spent with students, and it adds it up really quickly. I also track the way that a student was referred to me. Were they referred by a parent? Were they referred by a teacher, by another student? Did they self-refer? Did my principal refer them? Or did I just notice something as I was walking down the hall and I wanted to talk with that student? So did I refer them to myself? And that's interesting to see for the year, but also over a long period of time, how things change. For me, my first year, maybe I got a lot more teacher referrals and principal referrals, and then as time goes on, I'm getting more parents who know about me and about my resources, so they start to refer and call me and use me as a resource. Maybe I get more students referring other students or themselves. It's interesting to see those patterns. So that's basically how I document, and everything goes into a folder. I write the student's name, I put their grade level, so if it's 4th grade I write a 4 and put a square around it, and then write the first 4 letters of their teacher's last name in capital letters. And then every year I can see how they've grown, and so I might see a student in 4th grade, not in 5th grade, then in 6th grade. It just kind of depends. It would be kindergarten through 6th. Every year I'm going to be seeing that student. It just depends. Then with groups, I have the same basic session summary, but I have a separate folder that I use when I have a group with a student. So they might see me individually and they might see me within a small group the same school year. So they get 2 separate folders for those. And the group folders are, of course, because I'm interested in color coordinating, I have pink tabs for groups. And so that way, when I'm looking through my archives for my documentation folders, I can quickly find a group or an individual folder. So I think I explained everything. If you have any questions, though, you can, of course, contact me. I've already received a number of emails, and I've tried to help as best as I could, but I wanted to also do it in video format so you can really hear me explain it, and so I can also get some feedback on maybe other people have some better ways of doing things or different ideas. Thank you so much for listening to this podcast or viewing it. I love doing these, and I find them very helpful for myself so I can be able to explain something that I've done, and maybe I don't always do it in the most concise or effective way, but I like it for myself at least to document some of the things that I've been doing. So hopefully you found this helpful in some way, even if just a little bit. And I hope that you come back to elementaryschoolcounseling.org and watch future video podcasts and check out all the other resources I have on my site. If you are interested in following me and getting up-to-date updates about my site, you can follow me on, or like me on Facebook and follow me on Twitter. I'm also on YouTube. You can subscribe there and get all the updated video podcasts and other video playlists that I have. And also I'm on Pinterest, so I post a lot of my ideas on there as well. I hope you have a wonderful summer. I will continue to do video podcasts and add to my website over the summer, so be on the lookout. And enjoy your day. Thank you.
Give me strength, let me say.